Since we last spoke, we hear in your awesome broadcast of the All-Star game, Lindor being asked by John Smoltz about his athleticism and how the shift affects it as a shortstop. And he talks about how it takes hits away. Flat out said it. And then we see Matt Carpenter on one of the great all-time tears break up an extra base hitting streak by bunting down the left field line because he's against the shift. And I'm wondering, like, what are we trying to achieve here, Tom, with this thing, right?
Well, I think if the object is to achieve a game that is most attractive to the most people, then we have to do something about the shift. I get the argument that, listen, you'd be stifling innovation in some sort of way by putting any kind of governor or ban on a shift because, let's face it, it's making great use of data that we have in the game. It does take hits away, especially to left-handed hitters. Rich, I've looked at the batting average versus left-handed hitters, right-handed hitters, with shifts, without shifts. It's all pretty much in a small window in the 240s, 250s until you get to left-handers facing shifts, and they hit 227. 227. And the reason is, obviously, as a pull hitter lefty, the defense on that side can flex farther back and cover more ground. And it also takes hits away, not just the pull field, but up the middle. So I believe we have to do something because if you just sit here and you say, hey, listen, these guys should be able to adapt. Baseball ebbs and flows. Well, you know what? By the time baseball starts to flow after all this ebbing, you've lost a generation of fans who don't see enough hits. This is the fewest hits in a game since the DH started in 1973. It's not a good look. And I get what people say. Hey, listen, why don't you just hit the ball the other way? Well, what if Babe Ruth were playing today, right?
Yes.
First of all, I don't think he'd be very good. He'd be pretty old. But if he were playing today, they would shift on Babe Ruth. There's no doubt in my mind about that. He would not hit 383. And people would probably tell Babe Ruth, hey, why don't you just drop a bunt?
Ridiculous.
Choke up, hit the ball the other way. Is that really what we want?
No.
Is that what you want left-handed hitters to do? Listen, I think a few should bunt once in a while, but I really believe we need some governors on the shift, even if it's, for me, a rule that says the infielders have to have 1 foot on the dirt. That way you can flex over. You can have 3 guys on the right-hand side, but you're not playing that rover position, that softball position in the outfield. I mean, Rich, in the NFL, you always put your thumb on the scale balancing offense and defense,
No doubt.
right?
Yes.
You can't beat up the wide receiver, after 5 yards. NBA, we have illegal defenses. It's not an outrageous idea to put some sort of governor on defenses in MLB.
That's exactly what I say whenever I discuss it on this show or put it out there on Twitter when folks are like, well, you can't tell Belichick where to put his defenders. And I'm like, well, yes, you can. They have to be 5 yards removed from the offensive line in terms of touching somebody. I mean, you can have them right up within the 5 yards, but you can't hit your opponent within a 5-yard rule. And that made the game better. And plus, baseball's the only sport where the defense already has the ball. They're in the possession of the ball. That's the only sport. And so
I just think people have to realize that, doing nothing here, to me, is not an option anymore because the trend line here for the last 10 years and especially the last 5 years is that we're giving people fewer balls in play over a longer period of time. That is the worst possible formula for any kind of industry that wants to attract people with their, basically, the free time. So I think something has to be done to move this along because the trend lines, to me, with more strikeouts and fewer hits year after year after year, is not going to. It's not going to turn quickly. And as I said, by the time it does turn, we've lost a lot more fans.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.